In this video, I want to talk about the psychology of procrastination, why we do it and how you can overcome it. And in particular, I'd like to talk about something called your silent script and the role that this can play when it comes to procrastinating and your levels of motivation in general. Hi, I'm Stephen Burns from Mind School, and in this video I want to share with you some tips on how to overcome procrastination. Now this is video 2 in the series. It is a standalone video. You can watch this in isolation if you like, but I would recommend that you watch the other video, the first one in the series, so I'll include the link to it in the description below. So before we kick off, if you could of course like, subscribe and ring the bell, that would be absolutely fantastic. Also, if you stay to the end, I want to share with you a special bonus tip that can help you take your learning a little bit further. So what I'd like to talk about in this video is something called your silent script and the role that this can play in procrastination and how becoming aware of it and then, just playing about with it, making changes to it can make a big difference to your levels of motivation. So what is your silent script? Well, essentially it is your inner talk, but it's your inner talk that you're not aware of. That sounds a little bit weird, so let me explain. So as a human being, we can communicate ourselves in lots of different ways. We can communicate through internal pictures and movies. We can communicate through feelings, through sensations that tells us that something is going on. But we can also communicate by talking to ourselves through our inner self-talk. It's kind of like we're having a conversation with ourselves. And of course, it doesn't mean that you're going mad. Even if you ask yourself a question and then don't answer, that's fine, you're still sane. It's just one of the ways that we use to communicate to ourselves on the inside. So our silent script is the inner talk that we're having that we're not consciously aware of, or we're kind of semi-aware of it, but it's not fully into the foreground of our experience. So it's kind of like a recursive tape loop that's just playing in the background, that's just become almost like part of the furniture. We don't even realise that it's still happening. I just realised I'm clearly stuck in the 80s. Tape loop? Who has tapes these days? Another way to think about it is kind of like the stories that you tell yourself. Many people have stories that they just continually tell themselves, over a course of years about their worth, their potential, their ability to succeed, and all kinds of different other things. And because they've said them so many times, it's kind of like they've just become part of the bricks and mortar of their psychology. But at the end of the day, it is just a script that they're acting out. Now the thing is, even though we're not really aware of this silent script, that doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect on you. In fact, a lot of the time, because you're not aware of it, or you're semi-aware of it, it can actually have more effect on you because you don't question it. It just kind of slides in unnoticed. We don't pass it through our critical cognitive faculties. So actually, it can end up having more impact on us than the self-talk that we're aware of. So you're maybe wondering, what has this got to do with procrastination? Well, whenever we're looking to take action, whenever we're looking to do something, then we will describe those tasks to ourselves in our mind through language, through our self-talk. And the way that we describe them to ourselves will affect the levels of motivation that we have towards them. And a lot of the time, that self-talk, those descriptions are subconscious. They happen through our silent script. So let's just dig into this in a little bit more detail. So what I'm about to cover has been taken from a subject called NLP, that's Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And it's a thing called Modal Operators, which is a horrifically dull name for something that is actually pretty interesting and really useful. So a modal operator is the language that we use inside our mind to describe the tasks that we're about to take, the things that we're about to engage in, whether it be in conjunction with a goal or just a kind of daily task we have to do. And the reason why becoming aware of these can be so powerful is because each of the modal operators contain certain levels of motivation. And some of them, if we use them inside our mind to describe a task, will be a one-way ticket towards procrastination. So let's just take a look at a list of them, shall we? Now this is not an extensive list, so if you are a geeky NLPer out there and you're sitting back going, yeah, you've missed loads of these, then I know I'm just simplifying this just for people who have maybe not seen this before. So we have these words here. So we have want to, love to, like to, need to, have to, must do, and should do. And the thing is, when we are describing the tasks that we are about to engage in, the tasks that we're about to do, then often we will use these types of words through our silent script, through our internal talk. And some of them will really work for us. Some of them will trigger high levels of motivation, whereas other ones, like I said, will be a one-way ticket to procrastination. It will just make us not want to do the task at all and end up just procrastinating and doing something completely different. So just to give you an example, so one of the things I love to do is to run. I don't do it quite as much now, but I used to do it a lot a few years ago. And I had no issues with procrastination with running at all. It was something that I just did. I was very, very motivated to do it. And in fact, I would actually miss it if I didn't go out running every 2 or 3 days. And then I entered into a half marathon, and at the time I'd only been doing like 10Ks and 5Ks. So obviously for a half marathon, the training is a lot more challenging. You have to go out for much larger runs. And I was finding that I was procrastinating all over the place. I was really, really struggling to get motivated to go out for the runs, especially the longer ones. And it was like, what is going on here? So I decided, okay, I've got to do some self-analysis. I've got to, increase my self-awareness here. What the heck is going on? And I found out that for me, when I'm really, really motivated, it's because I want to do something. That's the way I'm thinking about it. That's the way I'm describing it. That's the way I'm imagining it inside my mind. If I want to do something, then honestly, get out of my way. There's no procrastination whatsoever. In fact, it's the opposite problem for me. I then struggle to stop. But however, when I describe something as something that I have to do, then it's a totally different story. It's kind of like, I have to do this. It's like, do I really need to do this? And my levels of motivation just plummet. And that is when I start to procrastinate. Interestingly enough, if I think of something as something that I need to do, then I'm still motivated. I still do it. I don't really procrastinate. But there is a bit of stress associated with it. I'll still do it, but it's a wee bit stressful if I need to do something. If I must do it, yeah, I'll still do it, but it's not quite as appealing as something that I want to do. So what I'd found was, when it comes to running, I'd actually flipped this inside my mind. I'd flipped it from something that I wanted to do to something that I had to do. So when I was describing it to myself, I was like, I have to go running again tonight, and I have to go for a 15K because this is my long run. And honestly, it was just so difficult to get myself to do it. So what did I do? Well, once I was aware of it, I then flipped it back round. I started to imagine, okay, well, what would it be like if I wanted to go out for that 15K? What would it be like if I described that to myself, going out for that run and really wanting to do it? And all of a sudden, the motivation came back. So this can be a really, really powerful thing to explore. And the thing is, there is no right or wrong here. Now, in general, people don't really do their shoulds. I think if there is a general rule here that if you describe something as something that you should do, then there's a very good chance that you won't do it. As Tony Robbins says, we should all over ourselves, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. But however, most of the time this will be unique to you. And the way to figure out which ones work for you is just to experiment, just to play about with them and see which ones give you the greatest amount of motivation that make you compelled to take action. So I want to just take you through a very quick exercise just so that you have an experience of it. So for this, what I'd like you to do is to think of some kind of goal that you'd like to achieve, and then think about the action that's required in order to achieve it. And when you're thinking about the action, when you're thinking about the things that you have to engage in, the things that you have to do, then I want you to think about those actions through various different filters. So let's bring up the list again. So I want you to think about the action, and I want you to think about the action as something that you want to do. What would it be like, just inside your imagination? What would it be like if you were to describe it in this way inside your mind through your self-talk? And you can bring to mind some images, some pictures, and this will, of course, affect your feelings too. How we think affects how we feel. So if you were to think about this task as something that you want to do, how does that affect your levels of motivation? Does it lead to procrastination, or does it make you feel motivated? And then once you've done that, you then want to just change it, just change the filter slightly inside your mind to something that you would love to do. So just imagine that. If you were to describe this task or these tasks as something that you would love to do, what would that be like? How does that affect your levels of motivation? Does it make you feel like you want to do it more or less? Just pay attention to how it feels inside your body. Then think about it as something that you would like to do. How does that feel inside your body? How does that change things? Describe it to yourself as something, yeah, I would like to do this. Then, once you've had a play about with that, you then move on to need to do it. If this was something that you need to do, how does it affect your levels of motivation? Does it make you procrastinate more, or would it make you procrastinate less? Then have a think about it as something that you have to do. This is the one I absolutely hate. It just does not work with me at all. That's probably why I lost interest in secondary school, because it was something I was being made to do. I had to do it. So think about it through that filter, and then move on to something that you must do. Now, I'm clearly going through this quite quickly. What I'd recommend you do is, after you watch this video, is just, spend 5 or 10 minutes going through this and really fully imagining each one. And then lastly, you want to move on to should do. What would it be like if it was something that you should do? This is usually the one that people's motivation completely plummets. But just pay attention to what happens for you. So, those are the different modal operators. What you're looking to do is just gauge your levels of motivation in each of them, and eventually, as you play about with this, you'll figure out one that is much more powerful than the others. And also what you want to do is, whenever you find yourself procrastinating or lacking motivation, you want to just become aware of how you're describing the task inside your mind. Because as I mentioned, it'll be through your silent script. So much of our inner talk is subconscious, and it's often the subconscious inner talk that can actually have the greatest impact on us, because it's very difficult to change something that we're not aware of. So just become aware, just sharpen your senses and go, okay, how am I describing this task to myself? Which of these modal operators am I using? And if you're using one that isn't working, then switch it round, use one that does work. So that is the tip for stopping procrastination. Become aware of your own silent script, how you describe the actions, the things that you're about to do. And then if you're using modal operators that aren't working for you, that are actually increasing procrastination and lowering motivation, then become aware of it and then switch it round. Use the ones that do work for you. So like I said, I would also like to give you a special bonus tip just to take your learning a little bit further. And this bonus tip is to do with the tone of voice you use when you're describing the tasks that you're about to engage in. Because a lot of the time, it's not just what we say, but it's how we say those things inside our mind in terms of the tone of voice. We respond to our tone of voice. It really affects our feelings. For example, if I was to say the same sentence in 2 different tones, it would have a very different impact. If I was to say, "What are you doing?" That's quite appealing. I'm just asking a question. However, if I was to say, "What are you doing?" then it's a very different response. It was a bit weird. You might be thinking, what's he up to? He's kind of suspicious there. Same words, different tone, but a very different response. And this can often be the same inside our mind. We respond quite sensitively to tone. So when you're using these modal operators, when you're describing the tasks that you're about to do or you're looking to engage in, become aware of the tone of voice you're using to describe them. That was also something I was doing with running. So I was using have to, but I was also using a really kind of horrible voice, and I was going, oh, I have to go out and do this 15k run. It was very lethargic and just super irritating. Then it was no wonder that that task wasn't appealing to me. One of the things I like to do now is I'll think about something that really appeals to me, something like eating chocolate. Honestly, eating chocolate is like this amazing, just like blissful experience for me. I have to keep it in check. So when I'm thinking about, chocolate, when I describe it to myself, it's almost like, I'd love to eat chocolate. I really want to eat chocolate. It's a very, very inviting tone of voice. It's almost like seductive in a way. So you want to think about something that really appeals to you and notice the tone of voice that you use, and then use that with the tasks that you've procrastinated in. So if it's going for a run or doing exercise or whatever, you can use that tone of voice. So if I use a tone of voice with chocolate, it would be, oh wow, I really want to go for a run. Sorry, that was a bit weird. I got a little bit carried away just talking about chocolate. But hopefully you get the picture. It's kind of like using bits and pieces that work in other areas of your life and transferring them over to the areas that really need the attention, where you need to think about them in a slightly different way. So that was a special bonus tip. Hopefully these ideas, these tips can really help you overcome procrastination. It can be such a pain in the arse when you get stuck in this loop of just putting things off, putting things off, and putting things off. So give them a go. Let me know how you get on in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can keep you up to date with future content. So that's all from me for just now. Have a great week, and I'll see you later on.